leadership is building a team, really working with the people around you, getting them on board, and having a common vision and focus, and being passionate about it. And that passion comes with the greatest leadership that has ever walked this earth, and that comes from Christ.
This episode of Bring Back the Porch, brought to you by Bernie Leahy, River Street Realty. Let's get you home. And joining me on the porch now is one of the candidates for the Medicinet Catholic Board of Education as a trustee. Welcome, Lindsay Heier.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We were just talking about how to pronounce your last name, Lindsay Heier. Lindsay for hire.
That's right. That'll work too.
You're trying to be hired, I guess, as a trustee on the Medicinet Catholic Board of Education.
Right.
Let's start at the beginning. Your life experience, your background. What do you think qualifies you to be a trustee?
Well, I think a number of things, but certainly in the world that we live, we need leadership. And as a father, I need to bring that to the forefront. If I want to be in my wife's good books, he said, behind every good man, there's a good woman. I try to be a good man, but I can definitely say I'm blessed with a good woman and a blessing of wisdom and strength. And being with her for 30 years, it's a huge blessing, and raising 4 kids. So leadership is, and certainly to lead as a father, to lead as a husband, but then multiple areas of experience. So, of course, I'm a counselor now for the last 7 years. I've had the opportunity to be Dean of Student Life at a Catholic university, Ave Maria, which was in Nicaragua. So very cultural, right? Although I grew up in Saskatchewan, I have that added edge of understanding different cultures. My wife is from Nicaragua. My mom was from Trinidad, the Caribbean. So, having that cultural background is highly important. Serving on a presidential team for 7 years gives me that understanding of how to resolve concerns and issues and human resource questions and all of that. So 7 years is a while to serve on that, and also serving on other boards as well. So the chaplaincy at the college. So being part of Victory Lutheran as well, helping them out, mm-hmm. I was able to serve on that board, and to be supportive there. So that gives me a broad perspective, of more skill sets in leadership. Also, I did 3 upstart companies, so that's also important. I have a teaching background, counseling background, but also understand companies. And I think that's important. I ran with my wife an international furniture company. I did a boutique hotel in Nicaragua, which was very successful for 6 years. At present, for the last 7 years, I ran my own counseling company. So, the other skill set is teaching, understanding lesson plans, and what does it mean to work in the trenches, as a teacher, right? So I did middle school all the way to high school, 7 through 12. I taught a year in the Bahamas, very different culture from a Latino culture, which I taught at a private Catholic school as well in Nicaragua for 2 years. So having that level of educational experience where I'm a presenter, I'm a teacher, I'm an evangelist, and working closely with the Catholic Church. So as a dean, one of the biggest things that I did actually was very central to my job was creating a Catholic culture. So when I first got there, there was maybe a few students practicing, and that was it. So leadership is building a team, really working with the people around you, getting them on board, and having a common vision and focus, and being passionate about it. And that passion comes with the greatest leadership that has ever walked this earth, and that comes from Christ. So have to be rooted in faith. So that's I think that qualifies me. That's one of my degrees as well. So education, I do have a theology degree. So a 4-year theology degree as well. And so those are some of the, I think, highlight experiences that bring a broad perspective of skill sets and life experience, which is, I think, is important for this role.
One of the things that we're seeing in education today is possible teacher strike. As of this recording, we don't know what the result of the vote is, but the teachers have been telling everybody who will listen that Alberta education is underfunded and they don't have enough teachers. They need more teachers, and that all costs money. So if you were a trustee on the board, how would you handle that?
Well, the first thing ever in any conflict is listen. Listen and understand both sides. Understand really what's at play. So that's the first thing you have to do. So even a good negotiator is going to listen to both sides. As a couples counselor working with conflict all the time, even if the other person disagrees with you, but you feel like you are heard and understood, it creates an avenue or a possibility of a landscape to negotiate. If the teachers don't feel like they're heard, understood, taken into consideration, then that doesn't leave a whole lot of room to negotiate. It creates walls and barriers. So bringing down the walls and barriers is a number one. Coming to the negotiating table and really understanding the core issues and then addressing them within the parameters of what you have to work with, right? Because that's going to be compared to other budgets from other schools. And so you have to, meet the mark. You have only so much wiggle room to negotiate. But certainly that's also why you need to listen. And listening says that you're worth it. We value you because we're going to take the time to truly understand your concerns and do whatever it takes to bring conclusion or to work through the conflict, right?
In the classroom today, it's different than it was when I was in school half a century ago or more.
Right.
We hear people talking about, well, in my day, they did it this way, but education has changed and evolved. You've been in the classroom probably more frequently or more recently than I have. What is in the classroom today that you like, and what do you think the changes are going to bring from the future?
Well, that's a good question. I think one of the things that in the world that we need today and won't ever get old is genuine relationship. And so when teachers can connect in a true way to whatever children or whatever the students, say children, it could be at any age, right? Whatever they're going through, that sense of relational connection is number one. The world, though it's changing so much with internet and everybody has their phones and everything else, and they feel as though they're connected to the world, but they're very disconnected to people, the genuine relationships. And I think that teachers can appreciate that's what they bring to the table, that genuine connection and relationship and rapport. And that's why students often, they say, oh, I love this teacher. I love that teacher. Oh, she's the best, or he's the best, because it's very relational. I think there's a depravity in the world of relation. So that's one thing. Certainly we have to also lean into the high tech of today. So your presentations are going to look different. And maybe smart rooms are going to be something. So bringing things up to speed. It's not just lecture. It has to be engaging and dynamic, and where you're trying to create a learning environment, not only of spoon feeding them information, but you're trying to get them to also be critical thinkers. Especially when you go through the years, you have the kind of the concrete thinking, you go into the abstract thinking, and really as they go up to high school, that's why they have debate club and this and that, trying to get them to move into the abstract and critical thinking and resolving of issues or problems or being able to handle stresses of life,
Mm-hmm.
So certainly education takes on a different look, but some things don't change. Other things, like when they become more computer savvy, they become more high tech in their approach to life in the sense of computers and their cell phones. And sometimes you can see somebody in middle school and they're just you can barely see their thumbs moving, right? All I got to say is I say, thank God I have voice command and I can text pretty quick because I'm a fast talker.
I'm one of these.
Yeah, I'd be one of those too if I didn't have voice command. So I can type, but I'm not really good at pecking and so voice command, you just say it and it all prints out real quick, right? So, yeah.
Alberta, today we hear that perhaps there is some threat to school boards and their autonomy coming from the provincial government. Have you thought about that at all in terms of them putting out lists of books that can and cannot be in the school libraries and curriculum and things like that?
Well, I think it focused on, what books are just very traditionally well-read books, right? That would be a part of whether it's Plato or Aristotle or this or that, or very famous books like Huckleberry Finn, or certain books that were quite maybe famous, but maybe they had a word or two that in today's age is more maybe inappropriate. Just like there's certain statues or this or that. Well, that's part of history, though. So I guess there's that sense of being careful of part of history, part of how it was then, so people can have an appreciation of how we've grown today. I think that's something really important. Now, there's also this question of inappropriate books that we go to the movies and it has movie classifications, right? Mm-hmm. Why should our school system be any different? If there's inappropriate material that really is rated R and inappropriate, well, I think it needs to be taken out. It's that simple. We safeguard the innocence of the young and of any age. I safeguard my own brain, right? I don't want things to enter in there that's inappropriate or immodest or not acceptable or doesn't line up with the Word of God. I don't want that floating around in my head. Well, how much more should adults and parents in the education system, especially at a Catholic school system, be the watchdog, so to say, of what's appropriate? What aligns with the light of Christ? What doesn't? What is a true value? What is a disvalue? What doesn't speak truth about our humanity, and the wholeness of what it means to be fully alive in Christ, right? So, incredibly important. So So I think it can be politically charged, but I think the key is that what is appropriate, what is age appropriate, especially, safeguarding the innocence of our children, and that becomes a big question. And at the end, as a separate school board, the other thing is this in play, that I know that the level of education, and I've as a counselor, I've had parents say, we switched to the Catholic system. I go, well, why did you do that? Just a curious question, right? And they said the values that they embrace, it's a friendlier atmosphere. They boast about the teachers, that they're so committed, and that sense of love. I mean, when you're in I think a Catholic school system, there should be this sense of, if we embrace the faith, that we go where we go, Christ goes. Because the Bible says it's no longer I that live, but Christ. So there should be a sense of this warmth and acceptance, a sense of love, the sense of it's not just a job, but it's my life mission. I want to be a better teacher. I'm not here only for the paycheck, but hey, you know what? That's important too, right? Mm-hmm. They put in the hours, the blood, sweat, and tears. They need to be paid for it. But I think, though, these teachers go far beyond that. I think they're in it for the mission. I think they love their job. I think their heart is in it. I think, and that heart is rooted in Christ. That's, what makes the difference, big difference.
One of the changes we've seen in education in the last 5-10 years is the academy role. You see all these billboards out for different academies where schools are trying to focus on a specific part of education. Has that anything you've given thought of? Like in the Catholic board, do they have I think 2-3 different academies, if I'm correct?
Well, I know that my kids attended a private bilingual school in Nicaragua, and they were incredibly well trained in many different areas, and they had additional classes, which would probably classify like academy, I'm not an expert on that, so I'm not speaking from a wealth of understanding, to be humble and honest. But certainly where there's specialty topics or there's a higher level of mathematics or more training availability, I think that's a good thing. When it's training them, we talk about skill sets in life, and giving more opportunity instead of less, I think, is always going to be a good thing. And so sometimes it's not going to be for every child, but certainly challenging those kids that need that extra challenge to prepare them for the whatever area of life they're going to go into. There's no limit. One might be a rocket scientist, and there was an added academy for that. High levels of science and this and that and bigger challenges. Well, okay, that was provided for. One might be a politician. Lord only knows we need better ones. I'm just kidding, just kidding. But that one might be amazing, right? To be trained in political science, and there's something extra there. So, I'm not an expert in the extra academies and what that all means. So I don't want to speak out of turn, so to say. Yeah. But I think that more is better, and having more diversity and opportunities for creating better leaders for tomorrow, right?
I think that academy idea, though, came out of a need for, because they say the dollars follow the student. So if you're almost in competition with other schools, other divisions, to get students to come to you. So you offer these different programs as a way to compete in today's world of education. So
right.
That's where I think that maybe that's something that boards may want to, I know they're looking at it now, but it's almost like you have to be a business side, and then there's the education side. You got to bring the students in the door to get the money to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, like I know they have an international program of bringing many studies abroad students in, and that was a big deal within the Catholic school system. And I think that's good. And that does bring a lot of extra money, these exchange students. That's one program, I think. But that's maybe not academy, but it's the concept of, but anyway, bringing other focuses of education and study certainly could bring in extra dollars, but also, like I said, it goes back to the leadership. Are we developing strong leaders? Are we giving them the tools that they need? Or is it only the traditional set things that we're going to offer and nothing more? So I think it's always wise to entertain that.
I know one of the projects that is underway right now in the separate school board is a new school that is being built to replace, I believe, St. Francis Xavier School. What does the rest of the district look like in terms of its infrastructure? Are you being faced with older buildings and those challenges?
I see older buildings. I see a lot of new ones too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's usually a mix, right? And certainly this is a huge step, I think, in the right direction. They were trying to remedy a lot of solutions coming under one roof, no pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they got two big gyms and it's going to be added fundraising and so on and so on. They can only do so much, right? And tackling a project of this size is certainly showing their tenacity or their the strength of the board to tackle something like that and to bring a facility from beginning to end, and with the whole system, and say, wow, this is a new and an amazing facility that's going to really serve the needs of the Catholic school system, right? So
that kind of planning, though, you just don't wake up one morning and say, let's go build a school.
No.
It takes a long time from the concept, the idea, the shovel goes in the ground, the construction, and then the students come through the door. So
that's right.
That is, again, goes back to what you say about leadership and vision for what we need 5-10 years down the road.
Absolutely. And that's one amazing example of how much time, how many meetings, how many phone calls, and you talk. So as an administrator, that's my background too. So how do you approach it? What energy, and focus and pushing things through. Part of a visionary is to lead, of course, by example, but you have to push things. You have to continue to motivate and inform your team and push things through and have those specific phone calls and making it happen. As they say in Canada, it's a very coined phrase, get her done, right?
Get her done.
Get her done.
Larry the Cable Guy.
Yeah, that's right. But and that's part of this Catholic school board, and being a trustee, hopefully I can serve in a capacity to be part of the team, to be a strength.
You were talking at the beginning of our conversation about your world experience, and I'd be interested, and I think others would too, what drew you to come back to Medicine Hat or come to Medicine Hat?
I chuckle because a lot of the things I do in life is a walk and a prayer. So I feel that my life needs to be governed all the time by God. And so all the things, and I look back, have always been that. Right from when I left university and I did missions in Russia, or I decided to, teach in Nicaragua. Growing up in the prairies, I said, who is this guy who studies in the States and goes to Nicaragua? I sometimes ask myself, what motivated me? So, part of that is, coming back to what drew me to Medicine Hat, I wanted to be in a smaller town, like 80,000. I didn't want to be in Calgary. I got here and I certainly had the opportunity to look around and go, wow, Medicine Hat is a pretty amazing, town, of cultural and the church is strong here. I went to visit the Catholic Church, and all of a sudden there's a men's group of 35 to 40 men, and it was vibrant, a lot of life. And the church, a lot of opportunities to serve in the church here as well. So I wanted to be in a city that was, not too small but not too big, and certainly to be in a church community that was vibrant, and certainly found it, and to be in a part of a community that's just more fully alive and has a lot to offer. So this is home for me. I grew up in Saskatchewan, a little town, Estevan, Saskatchewan. But I traveled the world, but I'm here to roost, so to say. This is home. So
the next step is to vote for Lindsay Heier for a Catholic Board of Education trustee on the 20th of October.
So, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to just share a little bit about who I am and my life. And by the way, can't forget my kids. So I do have 4 kids, 4 adult kids. So, Dad, you forgot about us. But anyway, thank you for this opportunity. And it's an opportunity of leadership. It's an opportunity to work as a team player and to really, make good things happen.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.